It's funny, actually. I was just watching a lecture last night about the neurological constituents of consciousness, and it's profoundly difficult, in neurology. I'm most, when we look at neurology, I think the most interesting things actually come out of anesthesia, general anesthesia, like when people go into surgery and things like this. It really gives us some insight into the nature of consciousness. But based on what I've studied and also what I've experienced, I would say I'm a firm dualist in the sense that, the brain is really, in my view at least, little more than a tool of the mind itself. Mind is something completely other. That's a very Buddhist idea as well.
Unpack that a little bit. I don't know nothing about that.
So in philosophy, the philosophy of reality, there's really been always two ways of looking at the world, what they call monism and dualism. So monism describes one reality, and most of the time that's typified as materialism. So science is very monism, there's only one physical world and that's it. Biblical thinking also tends to have a great accent on monism. That was actually where it largely seemed to emerge from, oddly enough. And religions tend more so towards dualism, which separates matter and mind. So the first major philosopher to tackle that was Plato, actually. And it was Plato and Aristotle who suggested that matter is one thing and mind is a completely separate thing. And that was where the Catholic Church picked it up. They integrated it into the notion of an immortal soul and things of this kind. The Eastern religions, Buddhism and Hinduism, they even go one step further by arguing that there's no matter at all, that really mind is the only thing that truly exists. So
is that what Maya is? The illusion? Yeah. The material world is, they are saying, literally an illusion, literally not there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's kind of a spectrum, where you can go with science, which is materialistic, that says everything is physical, but that leaves a lot of missing information. Like what is, I always like to challenge atheists. I say, well, then what physically is a dream made out of? If you see a lake in a dream, are there H2O molecules in there? It kind of seems ridiculous. Or, how much does consciousness weigh, right? You can ask these kinds of questions that reveal the limitations of materialism. It only goes so far. The other extreme is idealism, which is like Buddhism, which says everything is mind. There's no such thing as a physical reality. It's pure illusion. And dualism sits in between by suggesting that there's a little bit of both going on there. And it's been a long-standing debate between philosophies and religions, But in many ways, I sometimes wonder if maybe it isn't just sort of an arbitrary label that we put on a lot of these things. If anything, I would say I'm a dualist leaning towards idealism, actually. I think that mind is the fundamental basis of reality.
Certainly as individuals, our reality is fundamentally taking place in our own consciousness, and I can think of medical or at least anatomical ways that's evident, just the way that the optical function operates in creating, in breaking down photons into image, inverting that image in consciousness, just stuff that I'm literally not at all an expert in, that I have a sort of fleeting understanding of. I suppose what interests me about inducing, whether through meditation, breathing, or psychedelics, or some other practice, states of mind and experiences that seem, if not transcendent of, then detached from our typical understanding of the material world. Why I suppose this has become so important to me is the order of things is underwritten by the notion that this is truth. This is the way things are. And to bring about a new order, to change the way that the world is run, or my world is run, or your world is run, or the world at large, if there can ever be such a thing. It seems to me a requirement that we introduced new data and new understanding. Yeah. And I feel that we are experiencing the limitations of our current models, whether that's democracy, capitalism.
I couldn't agree.
Materialism. Thanks for watching this podcast and going all the way to the end of it. Would you so kind as to click the bell? It might not be there because they're over there. And subscribing so that we can infiltrate your serenity and peace of mind with jangling bells and buzzes. Thank you.